worked somewhere for 4.5 years, and I thought that there are better ways in which we could serve the customer. So in 1992, I raised $35,000 and went to start, at that time, Computer Warehouse. In 2012, we listed the company at $90 million valuation, which means that $35,000 seed money that we brought in had become 2,500 times. Chika, if you had put in 1,000 on the day of listing, it would be $2.5 million. But you didn't put in 1,000, did you?
Can you walk us through that journey from going from a startup all the way to IPO? How did you go about even fundraising? Who invested? Who were the early believers?
Do you have time?
Yes.
Austin Okere, founder of Computer Warehouse Group, a company that grew from a small dream in Lagos to a leading tech powerhouse across Africa. But Austin's story isn't just about technology. It's about people and about understanding that success without succession is failure in disguise.
What I feel will make entrepreneurship pursuit give it the best chance of success is a tripod. The rainmaker or the visionary. But you also need, in today's world, the technology guru. But you need someone who is looking after the money. And potential investors, when they see that kind of tripod, they are more confident to invest than just to see a titular person trying to raise money. They will negotiate you down.
On this episode of the Afropolitan Podcast, we sit with Austin Okere to talk about legacy, leadership, and what it means to build something that lasts beyond a lifetime.
What would 28-year-old Austin, the guy who quit Inlax with $35,000 to start CWG, think about what you've built and what would disappoint you?
Do you still have time?
We see the tweets, and every single day what we see is we love Afropolitan. This podcast is underrated. This is the best podcast ever. But the problem is 82% of you are not subscribers, but I know you guys are watching. So I need you to click the subscribe button so you can join the Afropolitan family. Thank you. Austin. So for the Afropolitan podcast, typically when people click to watch you, they're either going to be on the road, on a road trip. Maybe they're winding down from a long day. Maybe they're even going to the gym, listening to you. And I want you to first tell our audience one truth about building in Africa.
It is hard.
Explain. How is it hard?
Building anywhere is difficult.
Yeah.
Typically, it is harder than you thought it would be. It takes longer than you thought it would, and it's more expensive than you estimated. My advice is that in all these estimations, add a headroom of between 10 to 15%. So raising money, if you think you need $2 million, raise a 10 to 15% more because you will need it. You know, you might not, which is a bonus. Chances are that you will. When you come to Africa, it's a matter of the systems which you can plug into. Most times, those systems do not exist or they are not mature. So you are building your own infrastructure in order to build a business. And that makes it harder. A business is not just a machine, it's interrelationships. And in interrelationships, there's sometimes conflict. And in conflict is the rule of law that gives the people the confidence that I'll be realistic that there may be conflict, but there's a rule of law that I can rely on, you know. And that rule of law is still evolving, you know. It's sometimes subjective rather than being objective. And then customer education. You know, you're launching something new. People are stuck in the way that they're used to doing things. Very few people will give you that opportunity to try that new thing, which probably is a much better way, product or service. You know, and those breakthroughs make it very difficult to start in Africa. I mean, take a company like Apple. When they launch a new phone, people don't even know how it's going to be. But there's a long queue in front of every Apple store. People just want to try it. You try launching anything new here and see whether there will be a long queue in front of your shop to try it.
Yeah. And I even want to just talk about, because I know people consistently say building in Africa is hard. We get that. Almost every person we speak to has that same sentiment. But I want you to talk about the opportunity, right? Because I feel like an important part of this podcast is to also show it's time to build now. So when you are building new things or products, what opportunity do you see in Africa?
Let me start by saying that if you're looking for opportunities, then Africa offers you a vast plethora of opportunities, more than a lot of the Western countries where things already do exist. So the headroom for opportunity is less. The Chinese use the characters for challenge as opportunity. They call challenge a door of opportunity. So more or less, there are two sides of a coin. Where there is no challenge, it's difficult to find opportunity. And the opportunities in Africa are immense. In every area, there is a way in which you can improve it, be it health, be it education, be it agriculture or food chain, technology, you name it. There is opportunity in creative arts. And look at how those people in that industry have demonstrated how you can leverage that opportunity and create a global brand. When I see boxers, when I saw the England team, women team win the World Cup and dancing to Burna Boy, it's really something to behold. So that is the extent of opportunity. If you want to see the opportunities in Africa, look at what Nigerians have done with the creatives and music, and that gives you an idea of the vastness of the opportunity.
I've been looking forward to this interview. You know, me and you had been chatting on LinkedIn, so I'm so glad that you're here. But you started Computer Warehouse Group, you know, way back, and you started with $35,000, right? And CWG, it's also a publicly listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The reason why I'm so excited to have this is that journey from going from a startup all the way to IPO. So many startups don't even get to know what that experience looks like. But first, can you walk us through, at the time, raising $35,000, right, to how much multiples of returns you've gotten? How did you go about even fundraising? Who invested? Who were the early believers?
Do you have time?
Yes,
we have time. We have time. That's why we're here.
All right. So first and foremost, I was working somewhere before I started. I worked somewhere for a technology company for 4.5 years. And I thought that there are better ways in which we could serve the customer. So I raised $35,000 from a few friends and went to start, at that time, Computer Warehouse. Eventually, we changed the name to CWG, which is normal in technology. IBM was International Business Machines, became IBM. NCR was National Cash Register, became NCR. So CWG was Computer Warehouse Group. I tell you that when you are leaving your job to go and start somewhere, do not gauge how popular you were, how successful you were, what customers you had, because everything zeroes out once you hand over your badge. Your phone is more quiet. Your friends just forgot to invite you. It can be very lonely. Yeah. But for me, and my personal experience, I think my wife, Shola Okere, was a pillar of support. And she was a partner. We started in my apartment in Sulere. She was my secretary, my HR, and everything in between. I think the thing that she did that was very central was helping me in the hiring process. Is when you start, what makes the difference between whether you succeed or not is the people you're working with. You have few. They are young. And she helped me to hire some of the best people. I mean, give you an example. Buki Aluko, who was handling our hardware business, was in the business for about 18 years. Rajo Oladipo, who helped with opening the Port Harcourt and Abuja offices, was in the business for about 20 years. Femi Adeitan, who went to Ghana and was quite a pillar of support in Ghana, just retired last year. He was in the business for 25 years. Wow. And all these people were hired by my wife. So Shola Okere, shout out to you. I think she's the smarter of the both of us, but she's very reserved. So I'm not even sure that you've met her. But that's a very good place to start because it's lonely. And she made me believe in myself, when the disillusionment happened, that you are not as popular as you thought you were. You are not as successful. You don't have customers. She gave me that needed belief in myself that at least you could recreate this thing. We did it before. And when we started, the first thing you want is, what do I sell and who do I sell to? You sort of are coming from a dream world that is going to be a continuation, but those suppliers were not your suppliers.
They were the company suppliers.
They were the company suppliers. Those customers, it's same.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman of gentlemen, Andy Nwani. He had a company called Dataflex. So Andy was the first person to give me a price list from a company called American Microcomputer Center, AMCC. And they were now my suppliers. They were Andy's suppliers as well. And it was baffling because, I was going to be his competitor. And here he was. All he wanted to do was to help me to set up. So Andy, big shout out to you. I never believed that anybody that made it on their own. And sometimes we don't acknowledge enough. So we're ordering systems from American Microcomputer Center and then selling to anybody who wanted to buy. But we knew that model will not differentiate us. We're looking, therefore, to sign up with an OEM. But they were all taking IBM, which was your dad, HP, Compaq. The only one that didn't have a taker was Dell. And there's a reason why Dell didn't have a taker, because Dell did not produce to stock. They didn't manufacture to stock. They manufactured just in time. So,
sorry, could you explain the difference to our audience?
Okay. So many computer companies then will produce a computer quantities, put them in stock, and then ship them to customers. For Dell, they had no warehouse. When you place the order disintegrated to the suppliers. The suppliers put the parts together and ship to Dell. Then Dell put the system together and ship to you.
Okay.
So that turnaround is for us in Africa, it was between 3 weeks to a month. If you were in America, probably a couple of days. So for you to buy Dell, you have to know that you're going to need it a month before. And because we are not very planful in our nature, many companies did not buy Dell. But we wanted to change the culture to that just in time. It was cheaper because stock holding cost is 0. And I thought that the best people that will like that idea was people that had a mature computer culture. So telecoms, oil and gas, banking and finance. And then Dell itself had what we call global segment customers. So there will be customers like Mobile, Blue Circle. They have an agreed price with Dell globally. The only difference is the shipping, duty, and clearing cost. So most times you don't go into a bid for the free on board. So it was easier to now go and get those people to start buying Dell. And then other people saw how reliable the systems were. And then they also started buying Dell. So that was a big break for us. In fact, our first office in Surulere, on it was Dell, big Dell. We're more or less Dell in Nigeria. The only thing I didn't like was that bus stops used to call it, the bus conductors used to call that front of our office Dell bus stop. and that was like, gosh, please. But that was very helpful. But that alone was not sufficient. We started what? We had 5 people. Myself, then Femi Adewumi, Kingsley Odo, Suleiman Shaibu, Shei Peters at the reception. And that was enough to do buying and selling. By the way, I don't see buying and selling as computer business. It's trading business. The goods just happen to be computer. What makes it a technology business is the service that you put on it, the installation and the support.
Maintenance.
And the maintenance. But many companies then were not interested in that bit. So that also brought its challenge. But we knew that that was really the business. So in quotes, we'll put 20% as the maintenance fee, annual maintenance fee. And our competitors will put 5% because they knew they were never ever going to do it. We lost many bids until these matured companies that took that seriously, started insisting that, if we're going to buy from you, then you have to do the maintenance truthfully. And that's how it became more competitive and then brought up the maintenance culture. So that was Dell. But we also had the customers asking us whether we could do their local area networks because they trusted us. We delivered on our promises. And so we started doing local area networks for them. And the business grew very fast because many companies were changing to Category 5 cabling. One of the biggest contracts we got was with MTN doing their data center in the mainland. So we set up a whole subsidiary called DCC, which means Digital Communications Company.
And can you break down what a local area network is for our audience?
So a local area network is where you are connecting the computer within the complex, within the building or within the complex. Different from a wide area network, which is connecting branches to the head office. So that's like outside, wide area network, within local area network. And that brings me to the wide area network. So many of the companies which were doing wide area networks were on what we call very small aperture terminal. You know it as VSAT. It works like DSTV. You put the receiver and it will receive the signals. Whilst DSTV is one way, VSAT is two way. It's communicating and receiving. But when it rains, your DSTV stops working.
Yeah.
Same challenge with the KU band of the VSAT. Yeah. When it rains, the rains take the signals down, and then so it wasn't very reliable in that sense. And the C band, which could withstand the rain, was very expensive. But the differentiation for us is that when we came into this business, we set up our own network operating center at Lekki, a very big system. And we're carrying the signals for the banks through our network operating center. Our competitors were selling network operating centers to the banks, which was like an overkill. You don't have to have a broadcasting studio because you want to create content, which is similar to that. So we got all the customers with us because it made sense. And so out of the 25 banks there, I think 23 were on our systems.
Oh, wow.
And we're making something like $4 million profit per year on the...
$4 million back then.
Not turnover profit.
Okay. But still. But actually, I'm curious, were they paying in dollar at this time? Because Dell is an American system. So were they paying in dollar? Like, how was that back then?
No, it's Naira. You see, because we had foreign suppliers, they quote us in dollars, but then we have to quote the customer in Naira at the exchange rate, which brings me to the challenge. The challenge is that today, the exchange rate at which you bought it is, say, 100. So you bill the customer 100. When he's going to pay you in 90 days, it's now 130, but he'll pay you at 100, or he will insist. There's some back and forth, but many times the customer is just concerned about themselves. So that sank a lot of customers, a lot of competitors, because you think you are making profit. On paper, you're making profit. But in truth, what you need to pay when the customer pays you to your supplier is less than the profit which you made. So by ourselves, we did our books in dollars. But when we report in Naira. so that we see the truth. We've said no to many LPOs because we will say that this is the price. Whenever you want to pay, we'll convert it to the dollar at the exchange rate, even though we're going to bill you in Naira, but it will be at the exchange rate. These things make you grow a bit slower, but your growth is deep.
Yes.
So we played the long game. So that's on the telecommunication. The interesting one is the software. Do you still have time?
Yes.
Continue. Etche, remember that time I walked into a bank, I'm not going to give the name, and I asked them for $1,000 and they told me no, they cannot withdraw any dollar for me. And I was so upset. And I just remember asking everybody, how can I solve this issue? And I'm so happy that I finally have VBAN to finally solve this issue for me.
The thing is, you should be able to have access to your money anywhere in the world when you get paid, right? So I'm grateful we have VBAN as a sponsor for the Afropolitan Podcast. With VBAN, you're able to get paid in foreign currencies, whether it's pounds, USD, euros, and you can actually spend it in local currency as well. Now, you're also able to get a virtual card, which you can use to spend in and pay for services across the world, right? So I'm grateful to have VBAN as a sponsor.
You can download it on the Apple or Google Play Store. And remember, when you sign up, you use Afropolitan so they know you came from this podcast.
So the software was interesting because when I was in my former company, there was a new company starting out in Nigeria called EcoBank. Oh. And the pioneer CEO was a Asian called Alam Ahmed. I was a salesman. He walked in and he says he's looking for a company that could represent a software he wanted to deploy at EcoBank called Globus. And they didn't have a partnership here. I saw the opportunity. I went straight to my GM, who was the head of business, Pramod Metre, and I said, we have an opportunity here. We're not doing banking systems. We went and sat with Alam Ahmed and we concluded that we're going to take up the resellership and support of Globus. The company's fortune changed. Globus was it eventually became Terminus, but very successful. So I knew that a banking software partnership could change your fortune. So at CWG, I was looking for banking partnerships all over. Capiti gone, Phoenix gone, Bankmaster gone. We wrote to a company called Infosys, no response. So James Agada, who was in charge of our software, wrote our own local version of sort of a banking system today to do the job that the USSD was doing. Maybe you're too young to know, but in our day, you had to go to the bank to know your balance in order to write a check.
Sometimes you still have to do that when the network is down.
So we wrote a software that hit the query. It queried the banking on an inquiry basis. How much do I have on my balance? So
there was an API, basically.
You are very correct. Yeah. But there was a firewall between it and the live data. You can query, but you can't do transaction. What was my last 10 transactions? And they were in mobile phone, so you go to a Nitel booth and then you key in your codes. And
it would send it to the Nitel booth?
To tell you.
Oh, it would
telephone
tell you.
Banking. If it's a PC banking, which the companies that could afford it to buy, then it would come onto your PC.
Wow.
But it wasn't mobile phone. If you had mobile phone, it would tell you on your mobile phone. But because it was a local software, the 8 banks that were using it had pushed us to the bone. I think they were paying us $250,000 for the copy. And the support fees was 10%, $25,000. It was nothing. So one day, a gentleman walked into our office. His name was Jabez Mutlaya. And Jabez was from this same Infosys where we had written them letters and they did not respond.
Because back then it was letters, not necessarily
fax machine.
Okay.
And so he had come to Nigeria to recruit partners. I think they felt were small and new. So he had gone to all the big companies and they had what they were selling. So instead of going empty-handed to India, he came to our office as Sulere. We gave him a chair, we gave him water, coffee, tea, anything he wanted. And then we said, listen, we've been trying to partner you. Here is a software we created and so on. He found it interesting. He said, okay, I'll report back. And then, if the company is interested, given you are young, I flew to India with James.
Wow.
As aggressive as we were, because I knew what the result would be if we can get a banking application. They said, we'll give you an agreement in principle. It's only when you bring your first sale, then it will become a business alliance partner agreement. So we left. But this was in 1999. I don't know if you're old enough, there was something called Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K. Yeah. We're millennials.
So there was a tailwind of Y2K. Banks felt that their software was going to crash. They needed new software, standard software rather than what they created. So guess what? We got 3 customers leading to Y2K. Comet Bank, Oceanic Bank, and then Standard Trust Bank, Tony Emelu's bank. So I went with James to India and said, well, here we are with the purchase orders. They said, we have good and bad news for you. The good news is that you're a partner now. The bad news is that we can't do 3 at a time.
Wow.
Because they themselves were scaling
Growing,
very rapidly, and they didn't have Nigeria in their map. Suddenly Nigeria comes and wants to suck resources. But the good part of that was that they scaled us up very quickly because we had to then do it together. And we also scaled the customers' technology people up very quickly. And that has been the winning model of Finacle. When you sign for Finacle, we make sure that your technology department knows everything that we should know because we know everything that Infosys should know. And then we keep the customizations because the next bank will use the same customizations. And Infosys was doing the global version updates.
Yeah.
It's worked very perfectly. The shocker for us was that, I told you that we're selling our software for 250,000 naira. The copies of Finacle, I think the smallest one was $2.5 million.
Wow. Wait, per bank?
Per bank.
Wow. $2.5 million.
Yes. And the support fees was 30%.
Wow.
And this was annual.
Yeah. You see how the game
Software.
changed. And James forgave me because I told James, he put in so much work to develop those software that I told you. And I said, James, this will not cut it. I know you are fantastic with software, but we need something. He says, Austin, can we sign more software? Because this was like the gold standard. And Infosys themselves were a very ethical company, very good company. Just we had a very good fit. So that's how come with our hardware, our communications, and our software. So you asked me about the road to the listing. So in 2005, there was bank consolidation. That gave a tailwind because the banks that merged were now looking for global standard software. We made a lot of income from that. In 2000, there was the GSM revolution under Dr. Ernest Ndukwe. I think it was probably the most successful GSM bid ever in Africa. And we partnered with a company called MTN. Very small then when they were coming in. The main topic was Econet. Econet was everywhere. MTN was very small.
Yeah.
So everybody was facing Econet. We faced MTN. We were so close with them through our OEMs that we're sitting in their IT strategy meetings, chatting a route forward based on our partners and what they've done elsewhere. Eventually, MTN was generating $35 million per annum with us, or we're generating $35 million per annum with MTN, and that relationship continues to today.
Wow.
So it's those things. Now, in 2007, when we thought that we wanted to list, there wasn't the global meltdown yet. The companies before us that had gone to the stock exchange to list had raised billions so easily. In fact, I was surprised. There was a company called Big Treat. They were selling cakes and
Cakes.
yes,
And they
Treat.
Big Treat.
Big Treat in
Chinese,
Nigeria.
yes, it's owned by a Chinese lady.
and they listed.
Yes, and they
Nigeria.
raised gazillions of money. They had
Cakes.
cakes and pastries. Whole lot of
I
money.
invest in Giant.
Wait, is any type of cake company listening today? That's what I'm trying to understand.
It
Giant.
shows you how liquid the market was.
Back
You
then.
said was.
Was.
Keyword.
So we thought it would be a breeze for us to list.
And at the time, you guys were doing what in turnover a year in 2007?
So this is 2000. About we were going to close to about $55 million per year.
Okay.
Per year.
Yes.
Wow.
Then
Wait, sorry. How many people were in your company
at this time we'd gone to about 200.
Wow. Okay.
200.
And you had moved from Surulere, or you were still there?
Oh, Sule was it was our legacy. We had moved to many places.
Okay,
we had
okay.
moved to VI. We
Okay.
had so Lekki. So we had expanded
Yeah.
by 2007 when we wanted to list. To fill in the blank, in 2005, a local PE firm had approached us and had offered to take 25% of our company for $2 million.
Only 2 million.
Yes, and obviously, just like you said, only 2 million. So we didn't even
You didn't even broach it.
No, I said, Austin, you're a very proud man. You need this money. I said, but not under these terms.
Yeah.
And then in 2000, and in between, another company approached us, global PE firm, and
Abraaj.
offered.
Was it not Abraaj yet?
No, Abraaj yet. Yeah, you know the story.
Oh, no, we're coming.
So they had offered $8 million for 25%, bringing the
Okay.
valuation of company to 32. Columbia wrote a case study on that.
Okay.
And the question was, should Austin take the money or not? Half of the class, when I go to Columbia to debrief it, because I became an entrepreneur in resident at Columbia, they were using the case for a course called Foundations of Entrepreneurship. Half of the class said, you should take it, and half say, you shouldn't take it. But it's always half and half. We didn't take it. But now my stubbornness was beginning to be like a backfire, because come 2008, out of the blues was the global meltdown.
Oof.
I mean, serious companies could not even approach the market, not to talk of a cake company.
A cake company.
But we had our growth plans, two choices: scale down and do organic from your own cash flows, or still pursue an IPO, something, a liquidity event. I approached a lot of my friends, and started doing the preparation for an IPO. You have to be
The roadshow.
the roadshow and everything. We didn't get very much because the global meltdown mean people were holding the little money they had in their pocket. This is not a time to be
Investing.
adventurous. I was almost going to call it off.
Really?
Yes, because if the money is not, if people are not willing to take that risk because they want to protect their day-to-day and their needs, then it's not there until the market improves.
And you already turned down 2 million, then turned down 8 million.
I had.
Yes.
So it's like that gentleman's prophecy of you need it was coming to. But a gentleman sent emissaries to call me. His name was Ravi Sharma, and he was heading Aureos Capital. Aureos came from the CDC. So the CDC broke into two. Aureos was doing $10 million and below, and the CDC was doing $10 million and above. So we arrived. Myself, Philip, and James. I said, come, let's go together. And what do we have to lose? It's going to be another no anyway, but let's. So we arrived there. And Ravi Sharma said, listen, I've been following your company for 3 years. and I know so much about your company, very little you can tell me about your company. We're interested to come on board, but you have to return all the people who are putting money. People like Anya, people like Moesweli and so on, that even when things were tight, had brought out to put in. I said, well, we'll be very happy to engage, but under these conditions, it's impossible. So I stood up to go. I'm not going to return anybody's money because of my own advancement in that manner. I don't know whether that was where he now came in his mind to the conclusion that these people are ethical people. So it reinforces commitment, yes. And they invested $10 million for 17%.
Wow.
I want to go back a little bit before we get even to the IPO and how the IPO finished. There's a story about how you persuaded Tony Elumelu to come on board. That I think it was maybe after a board meeting. Do you remember this? Do you remember the story?
Go on.
Yes. And I think the reason why I wanted to speak to it is because it speaks to the grades that as a founder you have to have chasing deals, right? And I think we talked about how business in Africa is hard. A lot of the times, a lot of the business deals don't get closed in the office. You might have to find somebody at night, late night, at the club, at the gym. So what was that story, if you don't mind walking us how you closed Standard Trust?
So I didn't know you worked for this criminal investigation department because this is classified information. But since you know it, I'll tell you. So STB,
That's Standard Trust.
Standard Trust Bank,
Before it became UBA.
before they bought
merged.
UBA, or before they merged with UBA, was looking to change their core banking application. There were so many directions they were looking in. They were looking at FlexCube. They were looking at developing their own. Their consultant that they were using on the process was the one that championing developing your own. And we got in to say, listen, give us a chance to show you what we have. It's being used by Comet. It's being used by Oceanic Bank. They said, okay, they are going for a board retreat at Okere.
Where's Okere? In Lagos?
August
State.
on your way to August State, Okere. Okere TCC. It's a lovely place. So they gave us a time slot. Our time slot was, I think, 3 p.m. So we didn't take anything for granted. We invited Infosys to also come. And then we went to Okere for a 3 p.m. I think we got there at about 10 a.m. or so. 3 p.m., should we check into a room or we'll just do it and go to Lagos? By 5 p.m., they had not called us. We checked into a room. 6 p.m., they had not called us. 7 p.m., they had not called us.
And this was the time for landlines, right?
But we're in Okere and they were in Okere. Okay. So they didn't even need a line. They just have to tell you that it's your turn to come in.
Yeah.
And we're still wearing our suits and so on because we don't know what time you'll be called. They called us in at about a few minutes to midnight.
From 10 a.m.
Yes.
So wait, what were you guys?
But our slot was 3 though.
Yes, the slot was 3.
But what were you guys doing? You guys were just sitting there like...
In our suits.
Oh, wow.
See, the Gen Zs can't relate. Gen Zs who they left. Wait, what?
But it also made an impression on Tony because when they called us at a few minutes, firstly, I was like, gosh, you guys been here since morning and you're here getting to midnight. So my respect for them was, I think it's a very high pressure, but they were also respectful of us that we did not go back and then we were ready. We presented right into the early hours of the morning. And I think that made the switch, that made the conviction that this is the company we will go with because whenever we want them, they will be there. And then Tony went with us to India to sign off on Finacle, and that was a big game changer. After that, First Bank signed, and then when Tony merged with UBA, he made sure that both organizations were using UBA. So if I go back to the listing story, because Abraaj had now come in, we had the money we needed. That 10 million was what we needed.
So was it Abraaj that led it, or was it Aureos Capital?
Aureos, sorry.
Okay,
Aureos
yeah.
eventually became
Yes.
Abraaj. At that time,
Okay.
they were Aureos became
Abraaj.
Abraaj, but
Okay.
they were Aureos.
Okay.
So we had what we needed. They gave us a check in 2009.
2009.
And this is still
okay.
within the global financial market, like residue at
Yes,
least. Yeah.
it was.
It was still fresh, yeah.
It was
People
still
weren't
fresh.
able to get jobs or
At
anything.
all.
Yeah.
In fact, Nigeria's own impact was sort of a delay. The full thing hit us in 2010.
10.
Yes. So it was money that defended us against a lot of companies went down.
Yeah.
So now remember they'd come in at 55. And then in 2013, so when a PE company comes into your company, there are two choices: to give them a liquidity event, which is either listing or somebody else is going to come and buy, or after the fund expires after 5 years, you pay them 3 times the amount. For us, it was 3 times, 3x. So I was either to pay them $30 million, which in truth I didn't have, or to list. And you just wake up and say, I'm going to list. There's so many conditions that you had to go through to qualify to list. And then you even need them, mutantis mutandis, as it is for you, so it will be for me. So we both had to agree that this is the time to list. They saw the restlessness in me because I started this company in 1992. And by 2002, it was 20 years.
Wow.
And I felt, listen, I've given sufficient time of my life to let me go and do something else. I remember I went to the Lagos Business School to give a keynote or something. And I said, okay, by this December, I'll be leaving. Philip Obia will be taking over. And a lovely speech, everybody clapped. By the time I went back to the office, there was the Aureos people. We heard that you made a certain announcement at LBS. I said, oh, yeah. I said I'll be leaving at the end of this year. Have you read your contract?
Say, where are you going?
Wait, and this was in 2002.
2002.
Hey.
Is it 2012? Not
12.
2012.
I was about to say, that's a lot.
No, because they gave us the check in 2009.
9, okay.
So 2012 was like about getting to the third year, thereabouts. It's a 5-year investment. Said, you are the key man, and if you read the key man risk, this and this and the other one, you are not going anywhere unless you have $30 million to give us, or you list. I said, wow, I'm in trouble here. I'm in prison. so they agreed with me that we should list the company. We listed the company at $90 million valuation, which means that $35,000 seed money that we brought in had become 2,500 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Put this in perspective, Chika, if you had put in 1,000 on the day of listing, it would be $2.5 million. But you didn't put in 1,000, did you?
No shit.
So $35,000
Was the seed investment.
Turned into
$90 million.
Wow. And were they, like, in that $35,000, were there people who stayed? Because sometimes you have dilution events. Were there people who stayed?
Everybody was there.
Everybody was
in there. Everybody was in there. We had to dilute ourselves to bring in Abraaj, obviously, because now the listing, their debt stock became common stock.
Wow.
But that's where it was. I mean, they came in at 55 and then it's at 90. It's a win for all of us.
Yes.
But especially for those who were there at the beginning. I don't even think that I've heard anybody talk about 2,500 times except from Silicon Valley and the rest.
Wait, let's break this down because there's so much. The reason why this is very interesting to me specifically is because I literally tell Ashley all the time that another reason why we're doing this podcast is to document these case studies.
And demystify it.
And demystify it because like you said, Colombia, actually, in fact, someone we were speaking to the other day said a lot of these business schools cannot find enough African case studies. Right? Because most of the time you want to talk about IPO listing, you want to talk about all these details. So I want to understand from the 35,000, how many people invested?
6.
Only 6.
As many as 6.
As many as 6.
Well, You said only. I said
Okay. And those 6 people, how are they today?
Well, you're looking at one of the 6.
So I wanted to like go back because again, part of this podcast is being able to show that African businesses or African people can create ethical businesses that scale an IPO, and not all wealth has to be like corrupt, right? Because there's that narrative out there that, wealth is only corrupt. The only way to make it in Africa is to be corrupt. So you started a business as a startup. 20 years later, IPO'd on the Nigerian Stock Exchange from $35,000 to...
So it's more than 20 years because we listed in 2013. Okay, well,
so 20 plus years.
21 years.
21 years, right? Can you walk us through, because for a lot of people, they don't even know the mechanics of how, first, the due diligence process a private equity firm does before they even invest in your fund. And then the process of filing for an IPO, the paperwork, the lawyers, the banks, the underwriting. What does that look like in the Nigerian Stock Exchange context? And let's just start from the Abraaj investment. They've approached you, but they first have to do due diligence. They have to get access to your books. They have to see that your accounting is proper. What does that look like for the entrepreneurs or business people who are watching to prepare them for what that could possibly look like?
Like you say, it's a very detailed process. So once you agree that in principle you are ready to do the deal, you open what we call the data room.
Yep.
And in that data room, all the books are open. All debts, possible litigation, everything is open. You, the entrepreneur, you are at a slight disadvantage because you are there yourselves. You probably have your company lawyer sitting with you. The PE company will hire, in our case, I think they had...
Big Four? PwC?
They had I'll remember the name now. They are in the Octagon building to be their lawyer. Then they had another financial company, then a company from the UK. I mean, they really took things apart. The funny thing is that if the deal goes through, you pay for the people they are hiring.
Wait, if they didn't what?
Goes through, it's your cost.
Why?
Well, it's the way it is because they're doing the diligence on you.
Wait. You're coming. You want to potentially invest in my company, but I'm the one who's supposed to cover the cost for your lawyers and everything
The
else.
diligence is part of the investment process, which you cover. Well, I mean, you can argue, and you can. It depends on your relative strength in that
leverage.
relationship and leverage, But typically, they will pass the cost to you. We did negotiate some things. I mean, we got. Instead of 3 times, I think we got 2.5 times. I was more interested in negotiating that multiple than things, so choose your battles, So there's nothing that is hidden. And then you're going to sign that to the best of your knowledge, this is the truth. I think the biggest issue comes when you don't have a fallback plan. Then you are vulnerable. I had in my head, I told you already that I was going to cancel this whole process and then continue going organically. It was still an option. And at every point in the data room, it was clear that it was an option. So instead of me holding their shirt to sit at the table, they were rather holding my shirt. Don't go anywhere. Come sit down. Let's finish this thing.
Yeah.
I think even the 17% was because they were thinking of 20% for 10 million, and I negotiated a 3 out. So it depends on your leverage, but never be desperate. Never be desperate or don't show a desperation. Better never be desperate because there's a way it pops up. What we're financing our business with is overdraft against LPOs. And then when the customer pays, we pay the overdraft. And then it gets bigger. Our biggest partners, then Western Big Bank, Oceanic Bank, so the process takes long. I mean, I told you we're looking at this from 2007 and we got the check in 2009. So don't wait till you need money tomorrow and then start the process because it's going to take about that 2 years and then you start feeling desperate or you don't even know how to run the business because it's your only bullet in the gun.
What does that, so that's the private equity process. let's then move to the listing process, because the private equity process is 2 years. The listing process, what does that look like? Again, underwriting, banks, especially in the Nigerian Stock Exchange context, who are the partners you have to have around the table to make it happen?
So for us, we use a company called Vertiva. I can tell you for free, no matter the company you use, you will sell your own shares because they'll promise you. I mean, we were told, oh, this thing is going to be valuation of maybe $200 million, sweet. And so, but those things are said to you so that you are comfortable with the fees they'll charge you. I mean, I'm going
Wow.
going to make $200 million as a valuation. What is 10% of that? We ended up at 90, didn't we? But there's a limit to which someone can help you to take care of your child. The best person to take care of your child is yourself.
Yeah.
So we were literally going around to convince people of the value in CWG. But the process of filing to be on the exchange, the SEC, and so on and so forth, you can't do by yourself. It's a rigor that takes knowledge and practice. And so you have to go with any of those people that offer that service. They will tell you, they will sell your shares, they will give you a certain valuation. Don't believe all that. You sell your own shares and the valuation is what the market says.
Yeah. The market sets it.
So 90 million was because on the first day of trade, the trade and the number of shares multiplied is equal to that $90 million.
How many shares were outstanding or up for?
2.5 billion shares.
And what did they trade at on the share price?
I think at that time it was 6 naira and something. I don't know the fraction, but it was 6 point something.
Wow.
And what did you do the day after it listed?
I looked everywhere for you to give you a bottle of champagne. But I didn't find you.
Wow. But what does that look like when you wake up the next day and the next morning? And obviously the ticker CWG is on a stock exchange, like valued at $90 million. I mean, this is a baby that you've had. Actually, even before I ask that question, I want to talk about partners, right? You mentioned your partners, Philip, and I think you mentioned one.
James.
A lot of times to build a startup, you need co-founders and you need partners. What level of friendship and trust, because it's almost like a marriage, did you both or all of you have in each other, and what roles did each person play? So that obviously has to be strengths and weaknesses. So it has to be mitigated even in the partnership. So which role did each person play that allowed you guys to now go out and shine in your zone of genius?
Okay. First, let me explain something and I will answer your question. There is a certain principle which I call the roles, responsibility, and rewards question. In any partnership, eventually you discuss this one day. And at all points, it will be uncomfortable. But it's more uncomfortable when you leave it for later than in the beginning. In fact, if it's not discussed, it might manifest in the partnership breaking up. So we settled that very early in the sense that there has to be a first among equals. I started. Philip was one of the people that put in money, but he was working somewhere else. Philip was working in Crystal Bank, and then Crystal Bank went under. And here I was, the business was exploding. It doesn't mean that someone puts money must come and work in the business. It's when the person that is in the business says, I need. So I said to Philip, why not come and join me? James had a company called Expertage. It's a software company. He was also in the same company I was in Inlax. But he could make anything out of programs. He could build a software, he could write a program that will turn you upside down, but he can't sell anything. And so I said, listen, I'll be selling your products. But it was difficult because you get into gray areas of conflict of interest. And I said, well, the best thing to do is to combine the businesses. So I convinced CWG that we should take 85% of Export Edge and bring James into the group. So James now got into the group. Eventually, his 15% became 5% of the group. And then it was one homogeneous. But these discussions, you need to have them
Early.
at the beginning so that they don't creep up later. And the first among equals should also understand that it's no longer a one-man show. So that, the power is dispersed a little bit. But the kind of tripod that succeeds, or what I feel will make an entrepreneurship pursuit, give it the best chance of success, is a tripod. The rainmaker, which is the entrepreneur or the visionary. But you also need, in today's world, especially if it's a technology company, the technology guru. James was by far, in my estimation, one of the best. But you need someone who's looking after the money. And typically is also the one that looks after operations, which is Philip, which is strange because Philip's an engineer.
Yeah.
So we're covered in those areas. And potential investors, when they see that kind of tripod, they are more confident to invest than just to see a titular person trying to raise money. They will negotiate you down. Some of the things that will also make you to be negotiated down deliberately are simple things. Where are your minutes since you started the company? So if you're an entrepreneur watching, from today, make sure you have your quarterly meetings.
Yeah.
Get an advisory board if you don't want a board. File your minutes, and keep your records, your awards, your certifications. Some of the things which helped CWG in the leverage was that because we're doing projects, and projects were difficult if you don't have the qualification, everybody in the company, including myself, had to go through what we call the IT Infrastructure Library, or ITIL certification. I didn't do the exam. I didn't want to embarrass myself, but I did the process of the ITIL. We also certified COBIT, Common Objectives for Information Technology, so that every product that you produce comes to a certain global standard. And then we did the ISO. So if you're an entrepreneur watching, don't think you're wasting money. These are the things that the investor will look at. Each of these can be 2 or 3 percentages in your negotiation. And it helps when you're going to list, because it also gives the exchange confidence that you're not here today and gone tomorrow. But the one thing I'll close with in this partnership is, especially at the top, if you're an I person, it's not sufficient for an entrepreneur. What do I mean as an I person? I know accounting. I came in with accounting. Or I know sales. I came in with sales. I retired with sales. No. You come in with sales, the I person. You need to have some additional knowledge in, say, technology. Then you become a T person. Because then you know sales, but you know the technology that you're selling. And we encourage you to have one more skill. So also know about finance, so that you know how to price what you're selling such that it's fair price to you and the customer. Many times salespeople will argue with the accountant or the finance person, oh, he made me lose the deal. But if you understand exactly how we came by this price, then you sell the value. And if it is priced beyond its value, then we have to bring the price down. So then you're an H person. The typical entrepreneur is 4 square. He has 4 skills and then typically people will have 2 deep skills and 1. But I person is good in maybe big establishments like government,
corporations.
Yeah. I came in with this and this is my special and that's it. It's not enough in an entrepreneurial environment. It doesn't give us enough succession planning.
In this our environment, speaking of succession planning, right? I mean, we have politicians that stay to the day that they die. This is all across Africa, right? But for you stepped down, at 51. You said, okay, guys, I'm willing to hand over the reins. And this is even after the IPO, right? Not even pre-IPO, because you were considering stepping down pre-IPO. They let you know about what's in the contract. But what was the thinking behind look, it's time for me to leave? Because most Nigerians, to be honest with you, we don't see many stories of people leaving while at the top, right? And choosing to leave at the top. What inspired your thinking and your philosophy behind being able to step down? And what are some of the lessons, it has taught you about, or lessons that even others watching can learn from being able to have proper succession planning for the next generation?
Okay. Let me answer that question by making a correction. Yes. So I think I've said somewhere that we listed in July. Yes. It was after we listed in November, a week before Twitter listed, which is November
11th, 2013.
It's actually 15. So okay. November 15th. Okay. I think Twitter listed 22. I think so.
Okay.
But wherever Twitter listed, subtract 7 days, you get the day we listed. Yeah. But that was a cementing of the succession thought process, that was not where it started. The succession thought process for the entrepreneur has to have started long ago. We listed in 13. By 12, I was already saying that I was going. But it's not even 12 that I was thinking. By the time we're even going to the market, I had realized that the business will have to outlive you. But for the business to outlive you, you have to make it to do so. Some people say, I want the business to outlive me, but they sabotage the process of making the business outlive them, thereby making themselves indispensable, and therefore they continue to stay. The founder, think about him like a mango tree. The mango bears fruits, beautiful, ripens, beautiful. It continues to become bigger and riper. At a certain point, if you don't pluck the mangoes, they will rot on the tree. And that's what happens to the founder. Much as we can learn and relearn, you and I know that when you take photocopies from a copy, it becomes fainter and fainter. At a certain point, you need fresh ideas. You need fresh energy. You need to challenge today's realities. You need to create tomorrow's future. But you need to respect the past. But you can't stick in the past. And so many entrepreneurs, I think, inadvertently stay until they become like the mango that is rotten, and then the company is worthless. But if you time your stay very well, doesn't mean when you are leaving, you are not going to have anything to do with the company. I still hold my shares in CWG. I'm on the on the board as a non-executive director. What is the difference? As an entrepreneur running the business, I was doing things with my hands. As a board member, I'm doing things with my eyes. I'm pointing out where there are potential pitfalls. Restrain your hands. Use your eyes.
Observe.
So some people, founders say they have retired, but they are using their hands everywhere.
Yeah.
So the person running
Africans, that's what they do.
The person running the business is just taking orders. But at the end of the day, if you have done the T person, H person thing that I told you, you've built succession in the business, and then the founder finds out what he wants to go and do. Because if you don't have what you want to go and do, it's difficult to leave. My passion was shared prosperity. So I knew that this is something that I would do. I'd already had commercial success. So I was going on a path of a cultural legacy, which is the Ausso Leadership Academy. It wasn't difficult for me because as a result of the success of CWG, the case study, I was offered to become an entrepreneur in residence at Columbia Business School. I was on the Global Agenda Council for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the World Economic Forum. I was on the advisory board of the Global Business School Network, accrediting business schools. So there were other things which I was doing that were fulfilling. I'd set up the CWG Academy when a lot of OEMs came directly into the country and they were tripling the salary of our staff. And it was a survival issue. So we set up the academy, brought in rookies. These people are very good, young people. After 3 months, they're as good as any of our. But we helped the industry because we didn't train for just ourselves. We trained for our competitors and the customer. So the industry as a whole got a lot of people. Today, the CWG Academy gets a request for 300 people to come per quarter. We're able to take 50. maybe other people can also start so that we can build those core skills. So going to start the Ausso Leadership Academy was a no-brainer. On the CWG Academy, I was building technology capability. At the Ausso Leadership Academy, we are scaling, helping business leaders and entrepreneurs to scale to enable shared prosperity. If they scale, their business is going to grow. They are going to employ more people. Then people will earn money, which is like teaching me to fish than uncle give me 5,000 here. So I think we all have to come to the definition of a billionaire. The definition today is wrong. And Forbes magazine keeps re-emphasizing this definition. For me, a billionaire is not someone who has $1 billion in assets and liquidity. I think a billionaire is someone who has directly or indirectly positively influenced 1 billion people. So I'll call Mother Teresa a billionaire. She doesn't have $1 billion. I'll call Nelson Mandela a billionaire. She doesn't have. Now, JFK, MLK.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, positively though, have influenced, that's a billionaire. I think if Forbes start measuring on that basis, you see the change in humanity. But the way it's being measured now, people are in a mad scramble to accumulate and be at the titular head. Money that you are just going to become the richest man in the cemetery and impact not many people. What is the use?
Actually, I want to speak to, because you talked about advisory boards, and I also think this is a mystery to a lot of people. And I feel like there's a good segment of our audience that are at the stage that they can be on boards now. What does that look like to be on a board? Is it that you have to go through a training? Does a company approach you and say, we want you on our board? Is there a way that someone can actively, if they feel like they have the expertise to lend to a company, can they actively, speak to them? Like, I'm curious, how does that even work, even in Nigeria?
So I think that the statement you made is correct, that there are a lot of people that are potential for a board, maybe even advisory board. But we have this imposter syndrome of asking, am I really ready to go onto a board? Am I qualified to be on a board? Just like entrepreneurship. Was I born with it? Did I learn it? That's the wrong question. Who volunteers to be an entrepreneur? The person that puts his hand up is the person that volunteers. Who volunteers to go on a board is the person that puts his hand up. And there's a learning process. Of course, you prepare yourself to be able to do that. But I think the first thing to do is to look at who you admire. If you can speak with them, fine. Otherwise, you can learn about them from afar. So I've tried to influence a lot of people online. 45,000 people every day get my posts explaining some of these things. We're going to do something at the Ausso Leadership Academy about exactly that. How do I prepare myself to the board? The first thing is your eyes. How sharp are your eyes? So you're sitting in that boardroom and something doesn't look right. The temptation is, let me not expose myself. You nod. And it goes through. It can sink the company. Are you a person of candor? Are you ready to, let me put it in quotes, embarrass yourself by asking the question that can be obvious or can be the lifesaver of the company? Because that question that is termed stupid could be the keystone question that saved the company. But you didn't ask it because you didn't want to expose yourself. And if you don't want to expose yourself and learn to augment your ignorance, then don't think about going to a board. Another thing about a board is knowing who owns the company. Because if you're going to be on a board and you think Austin owns the company, you defer to Austin at every decision on the board. But I dare tell you that nobody owns the company. Nobody owns the company, just as nobody owns their children. You don't own them. You birth them. The company has a life of its own, and its life is lived through the actions of the directors. The directors can sink the company or grow the company, and the company can't do anything about it because It's life. It doesn't have limbs and hands and, So your allegiance is not to anybody as a board member, but to the company. If you understand that, you're on the right path. Yeah. So sometimes people call board members, Austin, there's this thing we're going to discuss tomorrow. This is what I think and so on and so forth. Do I have your support? You are not a board member. Do not decide before you get to the board, because there's going to be a very rich, diverse discussion, and whatever even position you had by yourself can change in that period, not to talk of when I've promised you that I'll vote this way. So I was approached by a multinational company. They were taking a stake in another company, which was going to be a subsidiary, and they wanted me to be on the board. Very big company, which I will not mention. And then the guy added a rider. But Austin, whenever they are voting, you vote with us. Okay. I'm so sorry, but I'm not available. I didn't say the reason, but I just said I'm not available. Why? A lot of people are saying I'm not available. Because what value will I add? Whatever you say, I'll vote with you. What true value can I add?
Yeah. I was going to bring up the CBN banned ATMs. I know I'm bringing PTSD, PTSD, but back then, right, the CBN banned ATMs. CWG had literally had a warehouse of ATMs with interest running. Can you walk us through that period, the story, what happened, the opportunity that you had even seen in the ATMs, the projections you had, how you guys navigated that challenge, because it could have sunk most companies, right? So could you tell us the story about that?
Yeah, I keep saying that you work for the Central Investigation Department. That is very true. I sighed because it brought back all those
PTSD
memories, PTSD as you call it. So here we were when we were going to go into the ATM business. I was told, Austin, you're too late. There's NCR, there's ICL, there's this and the other one. More so all the banks. But I never believe that anybody's experience is mine. That was yours. I'll start my experience, and if I come to that same conclusion, then I will take that decision. But until then, if you don't say you are, you are. If you believe you can, you can. If you believe you cannot, you are also right. So I stubbornly put my head in this ATM business, went into partnership with Wincon stuff. Another interesting story. I was in Paderborn in the winter. They're having a partners conference. I wasn't a partner. And Elizabeth Nitz, who was handling our region, came out and, what are you people doing in the cold? Myself and Philip. I said, we're waiting for you. I said, oh, you are partners coming. He said, no, we're not partners. What are you doing here? We want to become partners. So they had a partner already, but they signed us as well. And we did so well with that business, HA. We did so well. I think we were making about $25 million when the business was mature per annum from ATMs. If you're selling PCs, anybody can sell PCs, but ATMs is a different story. First, even to get the resellership for the OEM was tough. And then we got greedy. Profit was good. So we took loans, overdrafts, brought in containers. It's not something you fly, you bring it in by ship. So it takes time to get here. I think it was Sanusi SLS, the emir, that was the CBN governor, that said, and with good reason, that all our public places are becoming ATM markets. You see 7 ATMs lined up at the Murtala Mohammed Airport arrival. It was an eyesore, but we could do some different about how to handle it. Maybe if a bank is there already, shouldn't be more than 2. He just said no bank should deploy ATMs outside their branches, which is where you need ATMs. Because if I'm already at the bank branch, I can do anything. Go in there, yeah. And so the orders that we had from banks for those ATMs and the ones we bought for stock were all stranded. They canceled those orders and they said force majeure.
Wait. No, now.
God,
How? So you placed the order, the ships are, because they already landed. The container has landed. You can cancel the order. How does that work?
Well, their explanation is that they brought those ATMs to put in XYZ place, and the CBN says they can't put
You
it there
should
again.
meet Sanusi now. It's not
As the CBN has killed many dreams, trust me.
That was not fast force major. That was Sanusi major.
It was a major of some sort. So here we were stuck with these ATMs. The funny thing is that one of the banks, the interest on our loan were running, and they were the people that were supposed to. And, we were thinking that, okay, so you stop the interest. No, banking is a very impersonal business, Anyway, the long and short is that we had to find what to do with these ATMs. And what we did was we then said, okay, great. Let's use them as a service, because there was a company called the ATM Consortium, ATMC, which was mandated to deploy ATMs outside the branches. And I said, okay, let's go into partnership. We have the ATMs. So if you want rapid deployment, don't buy. We put it there, and then we can share revenue. It was slow coming, but I think the Emir Sanusi realized how impractical this was and how unprepared ATMC was to fill the gap. So he rescinded the order. And therefore, we had a huge opportunity because we had to deploy ATMs, and it was more profitable to put it there and share revenue. And so on the back of that, now that we're partnering with MTN to provide kiosks for self-service, which is really a game changer for MTN.
Wow. What were your thoughts? I know in 2018, Abraaj collapsed, the private equity firm. I'm assuming by that time they had exited their position at CWG because it had got listed. I don't know if they held on to more shares, but what was your thoughts around the collapse, like during that period?
I was deeply shocked. Because with Aureos, we knew where we were. When Abraaj came in, we thought it was a leg up because the optics were fantastic. We used to go to Dubai. They will have specialists come speak with us. We even won the corporate governance award from Abraaj. And we realized that there were corporate governance lapses itself in Abraaj, which caused the donor company, not donor, but the people that were investing with them, which included Bill Gates and the rest, to get really mad and went after Abraaj, and that's where they collapsed. But they held on to their shares. I mean, whenever you're onto a winning thing, you want to see how far it can go. They didn't sell their shares at listing. So they held their shares even after they went down. But they had a rep on our board. And then he ensured an orderly sale of the shares. The market goes up and down. So when we were worth $90 million, it doesn't mean that you'll be worth $90 million every day. You wake up tomorrow and you're probably worth 80 or 75 or maybe 110. So if you ask me, Austin, bring me $90 million, I may not have it. But the market price is always the share price on the day divided by multiplied by the number of shares. So to answer your question, there was an orderly sale of the Abraaj shares, and they hold no stock in our company anymore.
As an entrepreneur, when you get that first initial windfall, because sometimes maybe for some entrepreneurs, the goal might be create a good company, create enough value for society rewards you with financial rewards. But what sort of perspective and level-headedness did you have to gain in order to not necessarily go overboard with saying, okay, my company is now listed at $90 million, maybe I own a certain number of shares, it equals my net worth has grown. Were there some purchases you made that were like, okay, this is just to use this one to calm body, and then and then what were some of the things that you used to keep you grounded? The reason why is I have a friend he also had an exit, and he said the first time the money landed in his accounts and he opened up the app and he saw the money, he just went and laid on the side of the bed and in a fetal position. I just started holding himself because he didn't want to move mad. What does that look like? And what kept you grounded through that period?
Okay, I'll answer your question, but I'll tell you my philosophy. My philosophy has always been what I learned from someone when I was growing up. I think it was Dr. Isueli that told me this. When you make money, Austin, spend 1/3, save 1/3, and invest 1/3. And make sure that you're always living in your previous salary, not your augmented salary. So the direct answer to your question is, I didn't feel richer than before because as far as I was concerned, live in your previous salary, not in the current. The second truth is that valuation is a valuation. It's not money. If tomorrow there's a world war, any global event, COVID, the share price of many companies, including yours, can go to half.
Yeah.
And then that $90 million is now $45 million.
Yeah.
If tomorrow there's a boom, it can go to times 2. So that 90 becomes 180. But it is what it is. It's a perception of value.
Yeah.
And people mistake it to be money in their pocket. So they go on a buying spree. I didn't do all that. I think that level-headedness comes from the fact about expectation. When we were all growing up, we felt, oh, if I have my own house, I'm set. You get your own house. Oh, if I have one for rent, I'm set. You get one for rent. Oh, if only I had one in Dubai. We keep moving the expectation as a goalpost. But he is rich who is content. Otherwise, you're always poor in mind and you'll be struggling for more and more and more. I'm not so sure who wrote the book, a Russian, How Much Land Does a Man Need? It's a very good book to read when you want to ground yourself. Okay. What you need as a man at the end of the book, 6 by 6 where they bury you. That's how much land a man needs.
Wow. Which is a good point.
Very, very good point. And I'm curious if you could just quickly go over the structure of your Leadership Academy. Is it purely philanthropic? Is it actually, more of a profit type business? What is the structure of that?
Okay, so like I said, I already made my commercial success in my own expectation, which is modest.
In your own estimation.
And I was looking at what I could give back. And this was for me what to give back. And as I said, my passion was shared prosperity. So I knew that major companies had access to maybe big consulting firms that could give them what they needed.
Like McKinsey.
Correct. They had the
Boston
money.
Consulting Group, things like that.
But young entrepreneurs and business leaders that are making their way up the ladder didn't have that. And it's not about doing an MBA. No, it's about practical business experience sharing. So I approach business leaders in Nigeria of proven track record. We call them ALA champions. I think one of the first one was Austin Avuru. Then we had Engineer Ndukwe. And we had Sarah, who was the deputy governor of the central bank. So almost anybody you can think about, including Okere and Elumelu, who came here, he's an entrepreneur, is a ALA champion. Anybody that you can think about in Nigeria that has a good track record, person of candor, most likely is an ALA champion. Biodu Shobanjo, and so on and so forth. And I said, we are going to give a framework for business leaders and entrepreneurs about how to thrive in the business. And then we'll bring in the champions to share their own personal experience to crown it. And we call it open masterclass. Sometimes a small company will bring 3 people or 4 people, so put them in clusters, but they learn from other people. And we make sure that we didn't bring competitors in the same cohort, so we won't bring 2 advertising agencies or 2 media. But they love the fact that the champions came to share experiences. They love the framework they got. And they also love the fact that they were able to form a network and learn from their cohort. The beautiful part is, before you leave, you present your plan, your vision for the next 5 years. Where do I see Afropolitan? And then your first 1-year detailed plan. Therefore, what is the first year mission? And all the cohort will criticize it, tear it to pieces, and then we'll harden it. So when you go, you can press play.
Yeah.
Different from going to an MBA course where you do a course on Coca-Cola, or which really doesn't mean much to you. And it's worked very well. We started it in 2018, April. And 2019, we started hearing something called COVID. By 20, it was full blown.
Wow.
This was painful. Just like when we started in 92 CWG and 93, we had June 12th shutdown. I don't know why it always happens. So there we go. What do? We now moved the curriculum online. At that time, the technology companies stepped up during COVID with what you now have as Zoom, Teams, and so on. And we took advantage of that. We did some tests and we saw that it worked very well. In fact, it was a tailwind for us because now we're able to do impacts for companies in Kenya. We even did one for a company in Scotland. They make a whiskey called Glenfiddich, William Grant and Sons.
Yeah.
You know, and so it expanded. It had its pluses and minuses. So the people that were sent from the companies, when they went back to the companies, they were more or less outshining their bosses. Let's say it quietly. So then the companies then said, oh, no, instead of us sending you people to come and do the open masterclass, we want a closed masterclass. We want only us, our top 25 people. We're going to come to the academy and then we'll get the impact. So they've booked us. We're really fully booked now till end of February.
Wow.
And so the opportunity to do the open masterclass is fewer because it's more difficult to organize. I mean, a company calls you and then you go into a hotel, a lovely hotel, and you do the impact for the top 25. It's different from recruiting from all sources. But that's my passion, really, to get the younger entrepreneurs. And the big businesses said, Austin, listen, let me tell you, you can train all these boys you want. If we don't do well, who will give them business? So I don't know whether it was an assuage of conscience, but I still try to do at least one open masterclass a year. And every October 1, I have a free online where a lot of people tune in and then we share. Like this year, October, I was thriving through the difficult economy, you know, and so any opportunity at all to share as to impact people. For instance, even this podcast, I believe it will impact a lot of people. There's some things they can learn. It's not the full spectrum, but it's a good opportunity to start, you know. So yes, Afropolitan is a good candidate for the Ausso Leadership Academy.
Yes.
Amen.
When we do a masterclass,
Yes.
maybe
Amen.
we'll have the
Yes.
two of you.
Yes. Yes.
Austin, so you're 60 now.
July was 61.
61. What would 28-year-old Austin, the guy who quits Inlax with $35,000 to start CWG, think about what you've built and what would disappoint him?
All right. I think it's always easier to start from the good one first. For me, it's the impact. There's no point about having knowledge and not sharing it. There's no point about having solutions which nobody is impacting from. The impact of CWG is phenomenal. I mean, every call you make, I think maybe 60 to 7% of them go through MTN. And every MTN call that completes, we have a hand in it.
Wow.
Every banking transaction you do, about 65% of it go through Finacle. And every Finacle transaction, we have a hand in it. You know, so it's the impact. And if you look at the Ausso Leadership Academy, like I say, there are 45,000 people that follow regularly. But in terms of corporates, I think maybe 43 have benefited directly. And then 198 entrepreneurs that have come through. Then we have something called the guest delegate. So it's a paid course. I didn't answer that. I don't believe in things being free. I'm not going to make money from it, but it should pay. It should sustain itself. Yeah. But we also give scholarships for people to come, one, and then also open the door for everybody to come and experience the first day of each of the cohorts, just to see how it goes. And a lot of people stop me and say, oh, I've been to ALA, but I don't remember them. So I gave us a guest delegate, and I learned a lot. So the guest delegate day is the day that the champion comes to class. It's limited by the capacity of the place. I think I can take 33 or 35. So it's impact. I'm proud that we've done is impact. what will I be disappointed with? I'm not so sure it would be a direct disappointment as to say, could we have done more? Every time, I don't know if you watch the film Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Now, Oscar Schindler, at the end of the movie, with all the people he saved, the question he asked himself, could I have done more? And I find myself asking that question that Schindler asked himself, could we have done more?
We created the Afropolitan Podcast because we wanted to make sure we tell the stories of those who came before us and those who are coming in front of us.
Our stories deserve to be documented and remembered.
And over here at Afropolitan, our drink of choice is Invaroche, which is a gin from South Africa because we believe African brands are global. So, Eche, what are you toasting to?
To our builders, our innovators, to show that Black brilliance exists worldwide.
I am toasting to African creativity. I feel like the world is just blossoming with beautiful African storytellers.
Here's to legacy.
And stories worth sharing.
So babes, I'm always talking to you about investing. How's your journey going so far?
It started because you've been on my head for the past 6 months about investing, and you'll be proud of me because I actually found an app I love. It's called RiseVest. And actually what I love about it is that you can start with $10 and it automates everything for you. So literally I just go into the app and literally it's investing for me every single day.
Yeah, because we know you're not going to be a trader anytime soon. But with RiseVest, you're going to be able to invest in US stocks, right? Fixed income, real estate, etc. Right? And so I'm happy you're finally on board.
And you know, the funny thing too is I always tell my girls that as women, we're not investing enough, we're not talking about it, and we're not having these conversations. So I shared it in all my group chats. So you can find RiseVest on the Apple and Google Play Store.
Okay, make sure to use code Afropolitan so that they know that we sent you. You know how every week we sit down with people who've done it, people who've built, people who've led movements, people who've created culture. What if you could do more than just listen to them? That is why we built Convo by Afropolitan. On Convo, you're able to book one-on-one video calls with in-demand experts from Africa and the diaspora. Go to convo.vip to get access to your next mentor, because sometimes one convo can change your entire path. So we've come to our rapid fire segment. This is where we ask a question and you give the first thought that comes into your mind.
Okay, even if it's right or wrong.
Even if it's
the
right or
one
wrong,
that
just the
comes
first
to your
thought.
mind.
Anything that comes to mind.
One lesson Nigeria taught you that no MBA could.
Don't rely on the structure that exists. You might have to create yours.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you could mentor one global leader, who would it be and why?
I think it will be Steve Jobs, because I'll tell him I want to mentor him, but I'll take his mentorship.
A book or philosophy that changed your leadership lens.
In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters.
Finish this sentence. Africa will rise when...
You know what came into my head. I think you know it.
We all know it. But the second answer...
The second answer is when we really care about our people.
Yeah.
It's not about statistics, about GDP. Or I think this is where the Ghanaian president is getting it right. And he said, bettering people's lives is not quoting statistics to them. What have you given them on their plate to eat? And what have you put in their pockets? Stop praising yourselves about the statistics. They are important. But more importantly, how does it impact the people? How have they been impacted?
What's your favorite Nigerian food? Or African food, because I know you're Ghana, Nigeria, so...
Yeah. I like plantain and jollof rice and stew.
Okay, man of culture. So we ask every guest this last question. Whose story would you like to see get told on the Afropolitan Podcast?
Austin Avuru.
Austin Avuru.
Okay, you knew right away.
Yes. And also Ernest Ndukwe.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, said that.
Yes.
I'll tell you a story about Austin Avuru.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we have come to the end.
Yeah. Go.
No, please go on.
Okay.
Please.
So Austin Avuru and I were in the same cohort of the Entrepreneur of the Year competition, EY Entrepreneur of the Year competition. And we went for the final. I mean, they had to choose one of the two of us at a co-hotel, Seplat and CWG. to determine who will represent us at Monaco for the Global Entrepreneur of the Year. And all said and done, they came to the announcement. And the winner is Austin. Both of us stood up.
Well, you did 2 finalists, the 2 last finalists.
Yes.
I like that.
I can never forget that day. And then we looked at ourselves. But were you the winner? You know, so
So they didn't give the last name.
they did eventually, but the guy stretched it. It was Austin Avuru. But Seplat was much bigger than CWG. I think it was a fair decision.
Yeah.
But they invited me to come along with Austin to Monaco and give him all the support. So in Monaco, we became very good friends with his family, and so we've stayed very good friends to today.
Amazing.
I love
Please,
that.
we'll need your reference to
Yes,
him
please.
to give you on the podcast.
I'll
as
be
well.
very happy to give it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so
you.
much, Austin. Thank you.